most of the news coverage in the electric vehicle industry has focused on new electric vehicles, things like Tesla having new models, maybe recent developments in the subsidies and the rebates. There's been very little coverage of the used electric vehicle market, or used EVs. And within that market, it's first important to figure out how big is the market? How many people are buying used electric vehicles? Well, there's an article from Auto Remarketing, which is an excellent industry trade publication. If you go down into the buried data in this article, you'll find out exactly why you may not see as much high-profile data about used electric vehicles. What it says is, in the pre-owned market, there was a survey done by Experian. They're the company who it's one of the major credit bureaus, right? So if you run a credit bureau on yourself, you have Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, and they're the largest of the three. And they did some studies about used electric vehicle financing. Now, their numbers are about used electric vehicles that were financed. Not all used electric vehicle purchases, but when you think about it, most EVs are going to have financing because they're relatively more expensive. Certainly some people paid cash, but at least give a trend. So what they found is, in 2021, there were 60,000 pre-owned electric vehicles financed. That's not a lot. That's roughly 1,000 per state in 2021. 1,000 vehicles in a state, that's not a whole lot of used vehicles purchased. So what happened after that? Well, this study in 2022 didn't have the full numbers, but as of early summer, they were tracking 42,000 for this year to date, meaning that, let's say early, spring, early summer, let's call it May, June, they had 42,000 on the books. That's tracking maybe 70,000 for the year, maybe 80,000 for the year. It's more than 60,000, but you're not talking hundreds of thousands of vehicles or millions of vehicles that are purchased. This tells you what's going on with the used EV market. There's not a lot of transactions happening. Now, why is that? Are there not a lot of vehicles available? Do people not want to buy them? Are the prices too high? Well, in reality, part of it has to do with the history. Electric vehicles really didn't start to be produced in large volumes until the late 2000s, 2009, 2010. Certainly you had Prius and some Teslas, but until you got to 2014, 15, 16, there weren't a whole lot being produced. That means there's not a lot of used ones out in the marketplace. And many of the ones that were out there, people kept them for a long time. People didn't rotate these vehicles. Why is that? Well, for most buyers of electric vehicles, it was not their primary vehicle. It was the secondary vehicle. Most people will swap out or trade in or replace their primary vehicle about every 3 years, 3 to 4 years, depending upon the demographic. But your second vehicle that you have, or sometimes third vehicle, your EV, you may not swap that out for 6 or 7 years. So think about it. If the electric vehicle new car production really didn't start hitting stride until 2015 or 16, we're now just getting to that 6 or 7 year time period. That could be why electric vehicles in the used car market are not very high volume. Now, in the next few years, that's really going to be the determining factor. Are people buying used EVs? Are people trying to trade out of the one they have to get a new one? Put your thoughts in the comments. Would you consider purchasing a used EV? Is it something where if you're going to buy one, you want to get a new one to make sure the battery's good, to make sure that the model is more current? Or is it a good way to save some money by purchasing one that's used? One thing about electric vehicles is that the mileage isn't as important to these vehicles as it is on a gasoline vehicle. If you have a gas vehicle with 200,000 miles, a lot of its usage and lifespan has been used up. Where on an EV, as long as the battery was maintained properly, and that's the key, there may be plenty more life left in that vehicle because the electric motors which drive the vehicles, those will last a long time. Where on a gasoline vehicle, internal combustion engine, that engine wears out quicker. The middle word of that engine is the key. Internal combustion. This is burning and exploding inside the engine. It wears out the engine faster than an electric motor, which just spins with magnets. So used EVs are starting to come into the market. It'll be interesting to see in the next couple of years how it affects the volume and what increase in the sales rate happens in 24 or 25.